Canada didn't fire back. They didn't protest. They didn't threaten a trade war. They simply stopped buying. And now in 2025, entire American industries are quietly collapsing. Washington cheered. Cable news spun it as a strength. But Canada, they stayed silent. No press conference, no retaliation, no drama. Instead, something far more powerful began. Millions of Canadians quietly, intentionally turned their backs on American brands. They canceled Disney trips, pulled Budweiser from bar taps, walked past Nike shelves, and what followed was a slow-motion economic disaster that Washington never saw coming. This wasn't just a boycott, it was personal. A betrayal felt deeply. And now states across America are bleeding. Factories shuttering in Michigan, theme parks are empty in Florida, whiskey plants are shrinking in Tennessee. This isn't a news flash, it's a silent earthquake. And the craziest part, nobody in Washington, D.C. seems to be listening. In today's video, we're exposing the 6 United States products Canadians have turned their backs on and how that choice is devastating entire U.S. states. So don't scroll away. Don't miss this, because if even Canada, America's quiet, loyal neighbor, is done with us, who's next? Tap like, subscribe, and hit the bell. You're about to see a side of this story the media isn't telling. Let's dive in. Number 1. Peanut butter. It sounds ridiculous, almost petty, but it's anything but. In 2025, peanut butter became a quiet symbol of protest in Canada. Not because of price, not because of supply chain delays, but because of principle. Jif and Skippy, once dominant in Canadian pantries, have been swept off the shelves. According to Retail Monitor Canada, sales of American peanut butter brands dropped by 34% in just one quarter. Supermarkets like Loblaws, Soys, and Metro have replaced them with Canadian-made alternatives like Kraft Canada, Nuts to You, and All Good Natural. This shift isn't about taste, it's about trust, and it's personal. One shopper in Toronto put it bluntly in an interview: "We're not boycotting peanut butter, we're boycotting American arrogance." And, that sentiment is spreading fast. Social media is packed with hashtags like #NarSpreadCanadian and IPeanutPride. Food influencers on Instagram and TikTok are posting side-by-side taste tests, and they're always favoring the homegrown options. Parents are packing Canadian spreads in their kids' lunches. Schools are even making announcements encouraging locally sourced snacks. And this seemingly small boycott is hitting hard where it hurts. In Georgia and Arkansas, 2 peanut-producing powerhouses, processors are watching demand shrink. Factories are scaling back. Shipments to Canada have stalled. Shelves in Ontario are being filled with domestic brands, while warehouses in the U.S. South are overflowing with unsold inventory. What was once a reliable high-volume export is now a liability. And for American food producers, the message is clear. No product is too small to get caught in the fallout. Canada didn't make noise. They just made a choice. And it started with something as simple as a sandwich. Number 2. Harley-Davidson. For decades, Harley-Davidson wasn't just a motorcycle in Canada. It was a lifestyle, a symbol of freedom, rebellion, and pride in classic American craftsmanship. But in 2025, that rumble of patriotism has gone eerily quiet north of the border. After Canada imposed a 20% import tax on U.S.-made motorcycles in response to Trump's tariffs, Harley sales fell off a cliff, dropping 46% in just the first half of the year. Canadian dealerships that once had months-long wait lists are now reporting canceled orders, unsold inventory, and disappearing foot traffic. In Toronto, one Harley-Davidson dealer shut its doors after 22 years in business. The owner cited unsustainable tariffs and vanishing customer trust. And it's not just about cost. Riders are making a statement. Many biker clubs that once proudly flew American flags on their jackets and bikes are now switching to European and Japanese models. Triumphs, BMWs, Yamahas. A longtime Harley owner in Calgary summed it up, saying, "I love the bike, but I won't ride a brand that represents disrespect to my country." The fallout is being felt hard in places like Wisconsin and Missouri, where Harley's production and supplier networks are centered. Plants that once ran overtime to meet Canadian demand are now operating at reduced capacity. Workers are seeing hours slashed. Small parts manufacturers are losing contracts. This isn't just a dip in sales, it's a cultural shift. For Harley-Davidson, Canada used to be a wide-open road. Now, it's a dead end. And all because of a government decision, Harley had nothing to do with. But in the court of public opinion, the brand still takes the fall. Number 3. Amazon. Amazon used to be king in Canada. Fast shipping, unbeatable variety, and prime perks made it a staple for households from Vancouver to Halifax. But in 2025, Canadians began abandoning the platform in droves, not because of service changes, but because of sentiment. As US-Canada tensions escalated over tariffs, Amazon became a target. To many Canadians, it wasn't just a shopping site anymore. It was a symbol of American indifference. The numbers are staggering. Cross-border Amazon orders from Canada dropped 39% in the second quarter of the year, compared to the same period in 2024. Over 110,000 Canadian Prime memberships were cancelled between April and June alone. The biggest reasons? Customs delays, surprise import fees, and a growing resentment that Amazon, a company built on convenience, didn't stand up for Canadian consumers when they felt targeted. Reddit threads and Facebook groups exploded with hashtags like Cancel Prime Canada and Buy Local. Consumers shared alternatives. Canadian Tire, Simons, Well.ca, and Indigo all saw spikes in traffic. People started actively seeking out non-US options, even if it meant waiting longer or paying a bit more. As one Montreal shopper put it, "Why should I fund a company that won't even acknowledge what their home country is doing to ours?" And the consequences are bleeding into American states. Fulfillment centers in Washington, Texas, and Pennsylvania are processing fewer cross-border shipments. Logistics networks that once hummed with orders bound for Canada are slowing. Hiring freezes and internal restructuring are quietly happening behind the scenes. Amazon, once untouchable, is learning that even digital giants can be brought to their knees. Not by regulation, but by reputation. Canada didn't cancel Amazon. They just stopped clicking buy now. Number 4, Netflix. For years, Netflix was as much a part of Canadian evenings as maple syrup and hockey. Families, students, retirees, everyone streamed it. It dominated the living room. But in 2025, something changed. Not in the content, but in the climate. As the trade war between the US and Canada escalated, Netflix found itself caught in the crossfire. Not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't. When President Trump's administration imposed sweeping tariffs on Canadian goods and Canadian consumers began walking away from American brands, Netflix stayed silent. No public statement, no show of support for its Canadian audience. And in that silence, the exodus began. According to Streaming Insights Canada, Netflix lost over 520,000 subscribers in a single quarter, the sharpest drop in its history north of the border. That's not a business blip. That's a cultural rejection. Social media exploded with movements like Stream Canadian and Boycott Netflix. Viewers began flocking to alternatives like Crave CBC Gem and even British-based services like BritBox. It wasn't about content fatigue. It was about national pride. In Vancouver, one former subscriber wrote, "Netflix had every chance to say something. They didn't." That silence was louder than any insult. Even as Netflix tried to push more Canadian content, the damage was already done. Back in California, the collapse is real. LA's content pipeline, reliant on international licensing deals, is starting to feel the squeeze. Ad revenue projections have been slashed, production schedules tightened, entire creative teams that once banked on a growing Canadian viewership are now in limbo. Netflix isn't just losing viewers, it's losing trust. And in 2025, that's the one thing no streaming service can afford. Number 5, Walmart house brands. Walmart has been a fixture in Canadian retail for years, a go-to destination for groceries, household goods, clothing, and everyday essentials. But in 2025, even Walmart isn't safe from the fallout of Canada's silent protest. While the stores themselves still operate, the American-made products inside them are vanishing fast. At the heart of this quiet revolution are Walmart's US-based private labels, Great Value, Equate, and George. According to Retail Metrics Canada, sales of Walmart's US imported brands have dropped 29% since March. It's not that Canadians stopped shopping at Walmart, they just stopped putting American-made products in their carts. In Alberta and Ontario, entire sections of frozen foods and household items are being replaced with locally sourced alternatives. Managers are quietly responding with new signage and end caps that highlight Canadian-made products. One shopper in Winnipeg summed it up: "I still shop at Walmart, but if it says made in the USA, I put it back." Behind the scenes, internal memos leaked in May revealed a clear directive from Walmart Canada: de-Americanize key product categories. And the results are showing. American suppliers, many based in states like Arkansas, Georgia, and North Carolina, are feeling the squeeze. Contracts are being renegotiated. Order volumes are shrinking. For smaller manufacturers tied to Walmart's private label supply chain, the Canadian consumer shift is a massive blow. Walmart once seemed untouchable, too big to feel this kind of pain, but 2025 proved otherwise. Canadian wallets are speaking, and for U.S. producers who once relied on those shelves, the silence is deafening. Number 6. Ford and GM. For generations, Ford and General Motors have symbolized American industrial might, and Canada was one of their most loyal customers. From Ontario's factory towns to Alberta's farms, F-150s and Silverados were everywhere. But in 2025, that bond broke. When the Trump administration imposed steep tariffs on Canadian aluminum and lumber, Canada quietly retaliated with a 20% surtax on U.S.-made vehicles. And just like that, the love affair with American trucks screeched to a halt. The impact was immediate. Searches for Ford and GM vehicles in Canada dropped 31% between March and June. According to Auto Trader Canada, dealers reported a wave of walkouts, empty showrooms, and canceled test drives. Not because the trucks got worse, but because the trust did. In cities like Toronto and Vancouver, shoppers are asking for anything but American. Imports from Korea and Japan, especially Hyundai, Toyota, and Honda, are rising fast. But this isn't just about tariffs, it's emotional. A growing number of Canadians now view buying a U.S. vehicle as an endorsement of a country that's punishing theirs. One Ontario dealer put it simply: "This isn't about money anymore. It's about respect, and we lost it." And back in the U.S., the consequences are brutal. Michigan and Ohio, the heart of America's auto industry, are feeling it the worst. Factories in Detroit and Toledo are slowing, orders are down, layoffs are rising, supply chains are backing up with unsold inventory. For towns that depend on these jobs, it's not just an economic hit, it's an existential one. Canada didn't need to shout. They just turned the ignition off. And now Detroit is heading straight for the wall. Canada didn't slam the door, they just stopped showing up. From peanut butter to pickup trucks, their silence is shaking the U.S. economy to its core. If even our closest ally is walking away, who's next? Drop a comment, like, and subscribe, because this story is far from over.